Oh, it's recording quick. Well, I've been listening to a lot of the news. Let me turn this other light on. Oh, I've been listening to a lot of the news, especially with um, journalists getting murdered inside of embassies. Wow. Especially if he was really alive during 7 minutes of them taking off body parts, or like, I can't understand what would be the purpose. That's the only thing I don't get with like torturing or causing somebody pain like that. What is your purpose? Is your Because if you're gonna just kill them anyway, you know, the other part, like just to torture them and stuff, I like I don't understand the purpose of that. Because the journalists already have everything has already been written. It's already been read. It's gonna be out there forever. So murdering him doesn't stop anything that he had already done. So it doesn't make any sense. It's a lot like the Republicans, like Session. He's doing something with immigrations. Too bad the Indians didn't do it before the white people came over here and started murdering, slaughtering, raping, and just out and out. The nasty things that they're still, the narcissistic things they still do. Who knows, if they had stopped the Catholic Church from being here, maybe we wouldn't have 300 priests, sexually abusing kids in the 70s. And I'm sure there's a lot more of it because, everybody knows if you study theology, well, not really theology, that's more the religion part of it, but if you actually study the history of the Catholic Church or the church period, they did torture, maim, mutilate, and kill people, and they always had a history of sexually deviant behavior, you know. But they judge you, so therefore it's okay. I reckon, better judge not to let to be judged. But I noticed the Catholics here, they're very promiscuous, and like in Memphis and Sedgwick County, I think we have one of the highest HIV and STD rates. And a lot of it is if you tell somebody like, this is how you have to do it, they were, as they call it, disciplined, or the white man whooped us, or why shouldn't we whoop our kids, or whatever. Makes good logic to cause your kids pain and cause yourself to have to live with the type of aggravation that children in pain will cause you. They just run around like wild little things. When they're at the house with them, you just get a nice screaming and whooping fest. You know. But anyway, that's how people like it. Screaming and hollering at their kids every 2 minutes. But that's either here or there. But the problem is, like I was gonna say with Session, he's like they're gonna separate immigration. Immigration is rewriting it. All right. If they was really wanted to be like do something that wasn't harmful or didn't do anything harm, they would just let those people keep going north. Let them go right up in Canada. And like it's like what the other countries did. And you notice by them letting them go through, they didn't stay in those other countries. So a lot of the like white Republicans' logic is stew. The same way that they found that Dr. Ford is something to mock and tease and bully because of her being a victim of sexual abuse by one of their members, or who they wanted to vote in the Supreme Court. And a lot of times you hear about like, oh, we're going to ruin this man's life, but when you're raping children, even if you is a teenager, but if you're raping children, be they boys, these people do grow up to be adults, and they do grow up to be a lot like Hefner, the Supreme Court thing. Doesn't he remind you of like a person that when he was probably 10 or 12, was just a wild little running around banging his head. That like that his mother probably hit him. Somebody hurt him bad, and then he does look like being in Catholic Church, and we all have experienced someone that has some sexual abuse. If you don't know somebody, it's probably you, right? And the stigma to make it the victim feel like they have control over another human being's behavior. Maybe they never met this human being. There's plenty of times where a man might get excited. Maybe he sees some nipples through the dress, or the girl has a real short dress on, and she has her hormones squirting out of her pores, and she's got a butt and breasts, and which is not unique to just one woman. So and he might find this person attractive. His penis gets hard. So in a lot of places, in a lot of countries, it's just like, oh, boom, let's have sex with them. Like they have a lot of rapes, like with the Arabs, with their genocide way of raping. So in India, they have the men that do the group raping on the women, and those women are all covered up. So you could be all covered up from head to toe, or you could be in a nudist being naked, and say really as a woman you don't really have the rights, and there's nothing in the Constitution that stops us from being groped, grabbed, or whatever. There's something in the law, but a lot of like over here, like these policemen around here, not only were they abusing just as much drugs in the 80s as the rest of the community. They're not immune from the community, but they also have just as many STDs. The only thing is they have on top of that where like they get to blame the victim. So you don't have to change yourself. Like if you're a man and like you're a playboy, and you're having sex with multiple women, well, they're all whores. So you have so of course you're gonna have sex with them. Who wouldn't if there was a man? They're whores. So so men don't have to have any responsibilities, but you can see by the devastations in a lot of the poor community that is the result of sexual and physical abuse, is that you do have mental illness, and then you do have people that their lives are ruined at a very young age. Like those three girls that was held by this one man for 10 years in his house, shackled, to the wall or whatever it was, pretty much. And he had plenty of good reasons in his mind why it was okay, you know. But and we allow men to have these good reasons. Their mothers allow them because, like, would you if you're the mom, would you want to say I felt my child he doesn't have respect for women, and you're a woman, so you're gonna side with like to keep faith, especially Christians. We could just point our fingers at somebody else. Anyway, so but not all Christians are like that, but the majority of the ones that I personally have associated with that are real like Christians, it's very scary. No, they could justify their actions under the pretense, or like they're I could beat my kid near death because I'm going to beat Jesus into him. you know. But anyway, and so anyway, Sessions, and well, Pence and Sessions and these other Republicans, they're that type of religious people that cause more harm, more damage, and more of a bigger stigma on the community than it does to do nice, healthy, nurturing things to the community. But now, and then you have Sessions that wants to. They're just gonna change it all together. Like, and then we have Trump that basically is such a weak president, such a uneducated president. Um, uh, like, cause like I guess they're gonna. He got the FBI attacking Puerto Rico. Well, you could just look at North Carolina and what's going on with the hurricane they had there to understand, which I don't think he could comprehend or empathize. But most people can understand. Yeah, Puerto Rico went through that same thing. They lost their electricity. Is North Carolina electricity like, oh well, is the same in Puerto Rico? No. Did they lose lights the same as Puerto Rico? Yes. Why did they lose their electricity? Because the poles that was holding them fell down and the line snapped, so there wasn't a connection. So, you know, like to look at somebody's past, if we look anyway, and one of my biggest thing about like the Republicans and these white nationalists and racists, one thing is they go on about Hitler. I don't know if I really wrote this down, but there's some things to note about Hitler. He wanted money. He wanted to be rich. The war was there to put money in certain people's, like, take the Bush family for instance, and I'm talking about the Bushes that was president of the United States. Their family, they were in oil and gas. They promoted the war so they could supply the military with oil and gas. So like transportation is very important, and not only to bring the men to and fro, but food to and fro, and supplies. Period. Um, and then you have planes, but it's very important for you know planes, ships, tanks, trucks, even like for their cooking. Uh, so that's very important. Makes a lot of money. A lot of people make money during war times. So Hitler thing in his regime was about taking money out of everybody's and putting it in themselves. And you can look this up about um, for yourself. Um, but there's like a famous tunnel where there's a train in it that is just filled with museum stuff, gold stuff. When they took the Jews out of the ghetto, they took their jewelry, they took the gold out of their teeth, they took their money, they took all their stuff out of their house. Everything was for sale. And yes, you have to do a lot of stuff to keep the war going, but they also have free labor from the concentration camps. They also um, had scientists uh, that they utilize, but like, and one of the interesting things about Hitler and the regime was when they was in Africa, and Africa is full with oil, natural gas, gold, silver, copper, diamonds, rubies. You name anything that are money, is all of it is the riches, like the riches of the world. Um, they're ciphering it out, and there's a story that was told. Can't remember by whom. I know they were Jewish, but it could have been African because we had some friends over it. But anyway, there was a story, and they were saying that when the Germans, one of the Hitler's soldiers, one of their platoons, the Germans went into this one area. There was a lot of albinos. There's like every third house, had at least one child in there that was just totally pure white, white hair, white skin, pale eyes, just pure white. And they were like, oh, well, we were looking, the joke goes, oh, we were looking for the pure white race. This is a new propaganda, right? It's like, and just as a joke with the missionaries that was there, they were like, yeah, if you take off their arm, or you take off either like their foot or a body part, that that you could have great powers or something. As part of it, when they go through areas, especially during wartime, the propaganda they use is so they would like they would fight amongst themselves, in distraction, propaganda, distraction, all this, so they are able to get the riches out. Even the animals, they put them in zoos as money. Everything is money. And so they have the people preoccupied. It's like here in America, like if you could get them to watch football, if you could get them to watch basketball, you know, like like this is right around the time that our midterms are having. If you got them preoccupied with that, they're not going to be preoccupied with the politics because they're looking at sports, and that's sort of the same logic there. Distraction, diversion, and eluding, stuff, so they could continue. And then the second thing is they found this story about like something with a god, but the god's female, not like like a white male. It's a black female, and she had a cat. She had a black cat, a swastika. So here you have pure white race and a swastika. you know, this comes out of Africa. This comes out. You know what I'm saying? They could use so. Yeah, so, but this whole thing is just. Well, anyway, the story goes about with the god that she held, and it's not like a little house cat, but it's a black cat. So that she could give a person the illusion that she could change into the cat and change back into a person. It was just an illusion that was caused, like, I think of something physics, smokes and mirrors, basically. Um, um, and this was her way of this of like when she meditated or something, like they were saying that you can't look at her because when you look at her, it's like she would turn into a black cat, and then they were saying like um, every 7 generations, a piece of her gets passed down, through the family, and like there was a list of like who's in the family, but at the top of the family that started this family was the swastika, this black cat that was a god that came to Earth. She came to Earth with her counterpart, which was a male, and um, the the male and the female, they worked as one. So they was to once like like they got to over puberty or whatever, they would you wouldn't see the male without the female. They did everything together, you know, and that this 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 um I guess, but like they're humanoids that were gods. When they came to Earth and they hit the Earth, that they populated the Earth, and depending on um, what part of their bodies, because like when they hit the Earth, I guess it caused like a smush, but they were so full of life that when they hit the Earth and they touched the water and the heat that came in from the sun, and then that evening it cooled, and then that next day it was warm, that each part of their broken body became a different creature. The ones that landed in the water became the fish. Some that land on top of uh, the mountaintops became birds to fly down to get the fish. The ones on the land was able to walk to get the fish. Everything was eating fish. That was like their main diet was fish and like potato roots of different sorts. That was supposedly and foraging. So that was the humanites. They were fish and grain and like veggies, like they flowers and leaves too. Um, they weren't other mammals either because um, they saw that their God was in every life, and more so in other mammals. You know, um, they didn't have a problem with women breastfeeding, even though all the other mammals breastfed. There's nothing to be ashamed to be a woman among. So anyway, so basically that is supposed to be like what Hitler based his propaganda on to control the masses. So when you're looking for a pure white God, just remember there's a female that came out of Africa.